Hello friends, and welcome back to part 23 in this series where we'll be creating an Instagram clone in FlutterFlow and Supabase. So in the previous video we created our follow functionality, and in this video we'll be creating the unfollow functionality. So we want to allow our users to unfollow the accounts that they previously followed. So this unfollow functionality is actually very similar to our like functionality. So just to recap, for our like functionality, we have a toggle icon over here. And when our post component first initialized, we are calling a backend query to query our Supabase post like relation table to check if our user has already liked this post. So that's the first step that we have to do. So if we go over to our other user page, we can do the same thing in our other user page over here. So with the other user page root page selected, we want to open the action flow editor, and when the page first loads, we want to call a Supabase query. So we can search for Supabase and we'll query rows. For the table, we want to search and query our user follow relationship table. And for the filter, we want to check if our followed by is equal to our authenticated user's user ID, and if the followed to is equal to our user ID page parameter over here. And we can also give it an action output variable name of follow present or follow relation row. Yep, follow relation row. So then after this, if there is any row returned, that means the relationship exists. So we can get a conditional action. And for this, it'll be a single condition. We want to get the action output follow relation row is set and not empty. So actually, we don't need a single condition. We can just copy this variable, and we will first, go back. Then for this condition, we'll just paste this since it is already a condition, checking if our follow relation row action output variable is set and not empty. So if it is set and not empty, then we want to set our page state variable to isFollowed to be equal to true. So first we will go out and we will create a new page state variable. This can be isFollowed, and it will be a boolean variable. For the initial field, let's just set it as false for now. So we can confirm. Then in our action flow editor, if the relationship exists, then we want to set update page state. We want to update our isFollowed boolean variable to be equal to true. If not, we can copy this. Oops, that was the wrong action. We can copy this and we can paste it over here. And instead of setting it to be true, we want to set it to be equal to false. Alright, great. So now we actually have to do something with this follow button over here. So if the user has already followed, then I don't want to show this follow button. Instead, I want to show an unfollow button. So previously in our post component, we used a toggle icon, but clearly in our case over here, we want it to be a button, a different button, not an icon. So instead of using a toggle button or a toggle icon, we can wrap this widget in this thing called a conditional builder. So inside our conditional builder is able to take in a condition, and if the condition is true, it will show this button over here. If not, it will show the other button over here. So let's first set our condition. So our condition will be our page state variable, and it is followed. So if it is followed, then we want to show the unfollow button actually. So actually this condition should be the opposite statement. So if the user has not followed, then we want to show the follow button. If the user has followed, then we want to show an unfollow button over here. So let's first click on this to show in UI Builder. You can see that this eye icon under the else statement is also lit up. Then we want to copy this button and we want to paste it inside here. And let's just rename this button as Unfollow button. Let's also change some stuff. Let's change the fill color to, maybe let's change it to red. And then for the button text, it will be unfollow instead. We also need to go to the action flow editor of this unfollow button. And instead of inserting a row, we now want to delete the row from our relationship. So we will change this and we'll search for Supabase delete row. The table will still be from our user follower relationship. And now we need to set some filters. So for the first filter, it will be where followed by is equal to our authenticated user's user ID. And follow to is equal to the user ID that we pass in through our page parameters. And then we also want to refresh our database request. But one more thing that we have to do is we have to actually update our local page state variable so that it also updates the UI over here. So after refreshing the database request, we want to search for state and we want to update our page state. So you want to update our isFollow boolean and you want to set the value to be false. And we also want to do the same thing for our follow button. So we search for state, update page state, set the isFollowed boolean to be equal to true. Alright, yep. So one last thing that we have to do is that we have to actually go to our Supabase dashboard and we actually have to go and update our trigger function as well. So we go to SQL editor and we go to our user follow function. You can see that this function is only applicable to increasing the number of following and the number of followers. But we also want it such that when a row is deleted from our user follower relationship table, we also want to decrease the number of following as well as decrease the number of followers. So what we can do to update this function is that we can actually go ahead into our ChatGPT again. We can copy our previous prompt. We paste it here. And then we can give it our added functionality of when we delete a row. I'll actually just copy this, paste it here. When an existing row is deleted, and then instead of increase, it will just be decrease. You can see that it gave us two separate functions, but I want it all to be in one single function so that it's easier to read. Okay, so I'll just copy this code over here. What I can actually do is I can now replace the previous function with this new function, and I'll just run this function. And yep, success, no rows returned. That's what we like to see. Now we need to also create two triggers, one for insert and one for the delete action. So what we can do, we can go to our trigger file and we'll delete this first. We can copy this, paste it here, and we can also copy it for the delete trigger and paste it in the same file as well. Then we run this. Oops, it looks like it already exists, so we have to do create or replace. And after we do that, it should be good. Yep. If we go ahead to our database under triggers, we should see now that we have two new triggers over here for our user follower relationship table. So that's great. Yep, and that should be it. We can go ahead and try running our test mode now. Alright, so test mode is just loaded up. Let's try following Axolotl. And you can see that because we already previously followed Axolotl over here, we are now seeing the unfollow button. If we click on the unfollow button, you can see that now the follow button appears and the number of followers that Axolotl has decreased by 1. If we check inside our Supabase table, you can see that in our user follower relationship, the row over here has been deleted. If we follow again, we can now see the unfollow button, the number of follows increased by 1, and in our table over here, a new row has been inserted. So that's great, everything is working perfectly, and now we are officially done with our follow functionality. So one of the last things that we have to do in our app. Alright, but currently in this profile page over here, you can see that we are not displaying any of our posts over here. And if we go into our own profile page, you can see that the data over here is not being reflected properly just yet. If we try to edit our profile as well, this does not work just yet. So that's what we'll be doing in the next video. We'll be working on our edit profile page, and I can't wait to see you in the next video. So I'll see you there.